actually, with everything that's going on in the market, should you delay your retirement, and is the benefits to that, and is the sort of drawbacks to it? But I think it's
probably the most honest that it's not really just a UK problem, that inflation is a global problem. It's being...
What, from your perspective, is it... one of the questions that we always ask is, well, when's it going to go back up? Should I wait till it goes back up? And
it's remembering that you don't have to take the full 25% tax free in one go. If you invested in the True Potential balanced portfolio back when it launched, kind of October 2015, as of end of June, you would have seen a 38% return.
We'll kind of go back to the topic of should you delay your retirement? We'll start. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching. Welcome to the True Potential Do More With Your Money podcast, episode 127. I can't believe we're at 127, Neil.
Long
It was 126 last week. We've got a great title for you this week. Should you delay your retirement? Some interesting questions that we were talking about before the session, but I'll introduce our panel first. We're joined by the famous Neil Rayner, Head of Central Advice. Jenny Lang, not Hall, married now. Head of, I think it's the first podcast I did since you got married together.
I think so, yeah.
I think it is, so I'll get the right name. Head of Client Service. And then second podcast for you and I, Kevin Kidney, is Investment Director.
Good morning.
So we've got a good topic today, actually. I think it's quite an interesting one, a controversial one in terms of actually with everything that's going on in the market, should you delay your retirement, and is the benefits to that, and is the sort of drawbacks to it? But I think let's have a little talk about the sort of announcement. Kevin, I'll look at you straight away regarding the announcement of inflation this week being at 9.4%. Maybe just talk a little bit how that's affected the markets, please.
So markets have taken it in their stride, I think, this week. Expectations for inflation are quite high. So even though this week's print was a surprise in the upside, markets, I think, were well conditioned for it, probably because the number from the US the week before was very high as well. And, this isn't just a UK problem, this is a global issue with regards to rising prices. I think the challenge for the UK is the price rises are very broad. It's not just oil markets. It's going through into food, restaurants and hotels. The one part where there's not as much inflation is in clothing, but that's more of a seasonal issue. So I think there are still challenges ahead.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the clothing, I think this week I found out a new site that you can buy clothes from where it goes to China and you get cheaper clothes. So
Do tell.
I can't remember the exact name. You probably know this, but my wife introduced it to us, and I thought, well, I'll try this. I'll get some sports clothes. And 7 weeks later, it came across, and I've worn them once, and they're awful. So that'll teach
send them back.
Yeah, that'll teach me a lesson. I'll play the higher inflated. I'll play the higher inflated prices. I think it's quite interesting, actually. We kind of look at the inflation. It's been quite a topic when we're talking about the leadership debates, and I think it would be amiss if we didn't talk a little bit about that, Kevin, in terms of actually there's specific plans is there any plans that they're saying on how they're going to increase inflation? I think Rishi is, that's one of his big campaign offers. But what is it?
Yeah, so the ex-Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, he's probably the most credible of the two, simply because he's probably the most honest that it's not really just a UK problem, that inflation is a global problem. It's being driven by the supply of oil being too tight versus demand, and things like the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and the impact that's having on global food supplies. He's probably not as liberal on tax cuts as Liz Truss. He's more mindful that some form of fiscal balance, getting the country's finances back into some sort of equilibrium, is probably better in the long run. That's probably true. But I think both of them, whoever eventually becomes PM, will probably be disappointed going into Christmas that their impact upon inflation is rather modest. Probably going to have to wait until 9 months out, I think, to see real substantial falls in the growth of prices, just as base effects start to work in our favour. But unless, for instance, Liz Truss has a way of convincing Saudi Arabia to produce about 3 million barrels of oil more a day, then I'm afraid we're not really going to see lower petrol prices at the pumps for a while.
Lucky for us, we've got a close connection to Saudi Arabia, so we can. I'm at the match next week. I'll put a word in to see if that can happen. No, thanks, Cam. I think it's interesting. We might as well ask this question because I've listened to a few of the podcasts recently. Is who do you want to win? Let's start with you, Neil.
For me, I mean, out of the two candidates, I think Rishi, like Kevin said, is the most credible. I think he talks a lot more sense over the economic situation in the UK, and also he's qualified to do so. I think he come head to head with Liz Truss the other day on the two, and I think he gave a more credible answer as to paying down the UK debt. With keeping with the taxes rather than dumbing it down, which I think she did.
It was god awful, those debates, weren't they? It was cringy. It's like us.
Terrible.
I watched it for a little bit and I just thought this is just horrible. It was
something that we never used to do. We never used to do this. We never used to have a battle off between. It's very American.
Well, it's battle off against colleagues as well, isn't it? Which is quite it's quite different. I think they did it when sort of Boris was challenging as well, if I remember rightly. But it's Jenny, who do you?
I agree. I think he's just being honest with probably what nobody wants to hear, but what actually is right to do. So no, I agree.
Yeah, I think Rishi Sunak for me as well. He does have a background in finance, so I think he understands the nuts and bolts of economies better. I think he's a realist.
Yeah.
I think also that if the UK can move beyond sort of the Brexit culture wars, maybe move beyond things like the Northern Ireland Protocol dominating the airwaves, focus on bigger issues in the economy.
Yeah.
Rishi Sunak strikes me as the sort of individual to do that, whereas Liz Truss, I think, wants to appeal to different parts of the Conservative Party, which is picking fights with Europe over and over again, and it just distracts from the bigger issues that the UK has. UK is a great place to do business. It's very easy to make this country move. I think Rishi Sunak probably in the back of his mind knows what's needed, and there's a lot of easy wins there.
Yeah.
If they're just willing to look through some of the distractions.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same with you. I think it's time to move on past Brexit. I can't even believe we're still talking about it. And it being brought up in a leadership debate just makes you feel, come on, that happened years ago now. We need to move on. Yeah, we really do need to move on. Okay, let's get back to the topic of should you delay your retirement. I read a good article on this week. I saw it was in the Times on Sunday. Quite interesting, just really understanding, whether people actually want to finish the retirement, if they want to delay their retirement, or even can they afford to delay their retirement based on the price of the fund at the minute. Neil, I think we'll go across to you because I think it's an interesting debate, but I think we should just intercept and give our opinion on this.
Well, I do talk to a lot of central advice clients, as you know. I head up the central advice team, and we were talking just before the podcast started about conversations that we have with clients who are maybe in retirement now, have retired earlier, and some are finding it boring. Some want to return to work a little. But also as well, we have conversations about, we're very goals-based invested, as you know. Some people talk about they want to retire at 55 when they can take their personal pensions. Some want to retire at 60. Some want to retire at state pension age. It all depends on how much money you have in your pension pot and when you feel comfortable retiring. However, we do have a lot of clients who do decide to retire early, and we're having those conversations and thinking, well, I maybe just want to go back to work and work a little bit more, and then I want to start really taking less from my pension as to what I was taking, 3 or 4 years ago.
So that's interesting, because that's not a money, I suppose, problem, if I would put it in that words. It's more of a, actually, I'm bored and I want to have a bit more interaction. There's lots of people who do that. There's lots of clients done that. So if I've started my retirement, Neil, a few years ago and set up an income coming out from my pension, what would I do if I wanted to sort of adjust that and effectively adjust that to, because there's income coming from other sources?
Contact your financial advisor, or contact our customer care team, who can put you in touch with a financial advisor, and that's what we pretty much do every day. We have a lot of people who, because as you know, pensions are flexible now, they're not like the old workplace pensions or the defined benefit or final salary pensions where you get that guaranteed level every month. You can now change the amount of income that you want flexibly. So if you want £10,000 income 1 year, you can change it to £15,000 the next if you have it more expense. But it's just about having conversations with your financial advisor, because also, more importantly as well, we can work out the tax implications of taking more or less within your pension, within your personal allowances.
And how does that work from a platform perspective, Jenny? You probably get called direct clients that you know maybe don't have an advisor, or you know how would they deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely. They just need to contact us, and we can make the adjustment, whether that's an increase or a decrease. Also, if you've not taken from your pot before, you know, you can contact us and we can activate the withdrawal form on your client side. So there's no need to kind of, you know, speak to us over the phone or send something via the post. It's all electronic, and typically it takes around 9 working days to get that out. So it is a really kind of quick turnaround time.
I think it's most important as well to highlight as well that if you're taking benefits from your pension and you've just maybe accessed some tax-free cash, you can still actually put money into your pension.
Yeah,
so a lot of people have money, you know, lying around. There's been a lot of savings saved up within the last 2 years with COVID, where people have got a lot of money on cash ISAs or deposit-based accounts, where they're thinking, well, actually, I'm going to get a tax uplift if I put that money into my pension, depending on how much money I earn. Why not put it in, get some more money on retirement? And as long as you've not taken you know, any income from your pension, you can still put up to £40,000 or 100% of your salary in if you are still working.
Even if you're kind of part-time working, like you say, you know, kind of reducing your hours, and maybe you can't commit to it every month, like in form of a direct debit, you could always use the impulse save feature. And another kind of thing as well, when we're talking about, you know, kind of cost of living and things like that, you know, the reward section within the client site is still so good as well, because it's money that you'd be spending to buy a present or clothes. Jamie, you know, maybe go and have a look there next time, see what you can get on rewards. But you know, you can then get the cash back and it can go into your pension as a contribution as well.
Yeah,
so.
I totally agree. I think it's an element of some areas to consider there. Really, is specifically if you are taking employment again, there's a chance that you will be offered a pension through auto enrolment scheme. I would double check when you are doing that if you have started taking an income out of your pension, you can. Obviously, your allowance that you can put in your pension deal can reduce, so you just need to double check, you know, that you don't go over that and cause yourself an unnecessary tax problem. But I think the key there is if you're considering going back to work, speak to your advisor, or give us a call, and we'll be happy to sort of really
if you're unsure about things like tax, about, you know, how much money you can put in to your pension, then, you know, that's what the financial advisors are there for.
So Kevin, we'll switch this across to an investment nature. So let's just say I'm one of our clients and I'm thinking of retiring this year. You know, we know markets are down this year. What, from your perspective, is it? One of the questions that we always ask is, well, when's it going to go back up? Should I wait till it goes back up? And I think what's your view on that?
So what's interesting is some of the work we did in the investment team was we looked at what would an investor have made had they perfectly called the bottom in inflation 2 years ago and invested all the money in inflation-proofed bonds. So bonds issued by the UK government but linked to inflation. You'd have lost more than had you been invested in equities. Right. So it shows that sometimes what is a safe haven investment isn't necessarily such. So what's constructive about, for instance, the stock market is the ratio of stock prices to the earnings in companies is back to a long run average. So we've seen some of the froth from COVID come out. We're also seeing, particularly this week, some pretty good earnings results from global companies. So Tesla, Netflix were a bit more upbeat than the previous quarter. Pepsi, again, a bit more upbeat. So these companies are, I think, telling us two things. One is that they can, at the margins, push through cost increases onto consumers, but also the demand they're seeing from consumers is still there. And that's backed up by the fact that we're pretty much at full employment in most Western economies, which is the most powerful driver for economic growth, for returns for companies, and for their ability to generate profits for their shareholders. So the constructive thing, I think, is we are seeing a correction, but it's not because of bad economics. It's more that there's just an adjustment going on because of how strong the underlying economy is, and that sooner rather than later that adjustment will be over.
Yeah, I think so. I think just kind of going back to the retirement point on that, and Neil, I'll give a view on it and for yourself. I think it's always weighing up what your pot is and what your size is, and actually can you afford to retire, because you do only have one life. So I think it's fair enough. I could say as an advisor, wait another year, wait for your funds to go back up, because the chances are they will, but you do only have one life. So I think it's worth making that consideration. This is why I always when you're looking at when you are looking to retire, really sort of jot down, well, actually, what is my expenditure? What do I need? And think about things such as that you might not need. So the travel from work, for example, you might reduce your petrol, but you might increase your holidays because you've got more time to do things. You might spend more time at the coffee shop because So these are the things you've got to consider. But get that written down. Look at what your pot size is and say, actually, right, based on this, can I afford to do this now? And there's other areas to consider when you turn 67, if you're not already, potential of your state pension. And this is why I think a good conversation with an advisor when you're looking at planning for that moment that you've saved all your life for is vital.
Yeah, and I think it ties back to the products now as well. Pensions are more flexible, so you can change your lifestyle and your income in accordance with what you want to do. If you want to work part time, but you know what you said before is you only get one life, so your pension pot, what is it for? It's for income on retirement. But then again, you have still another 20, 30, 40 years ahead of you. So it's wise to plan. But it's, conversations that we have every day with clients. And yeah, it's really beneficial to speak to an advisor.
It is. I've helped lots of clients as well, specifically on the people that have transferred their final salary pension across, took that little bit of retirement earlier that they didn't think they could because they've got the option of rather than taking an income for the rest of their life, they can take that flexibility. So there's benefits, there's real benefits of retiring early. But actually there's benefits of staying in work as well. I've got my dad, I don't think he'll ever will retire. He's a bricklayer and he loves his job, loves going to work. He's now 67. Mm-hmm. How old are you? Not far behind you. He's 67 and he just loves to go to work. And I keep saying to him, you need to consider this. It's like, well, no, I'll actually, what am I going to do? Mm. And I think that's a point to make, isn't it? When you're thinking about your options, is actually what are you going to do when you retire?
I think if you're qualified and you've had a career, then you get to a certain age where you can pick and choose what work you want to do. So you can be a lot more selective. You could be a consultant or you could take the odd job here and there like your dad does. Yeah. But yeah, you've got options. That's basically what it is. And I think pensions nowadays and ISAs, a lot more flexible. With the technology as well, you can action a lot or change a lot via the app. Mm-hmm. So if you want to change your income on your app or, you want to speak to customer care, we can do that pretty much straight away for you.
I think it's remembering as well that, even when you do turn 55, whether you decide to retire in full or, kind of go part-time, it's remembering that you don't have to take the full 25% tax-free in one go. The functionality is there for you to take as little or as much as you need, as often as you need. So, I guess the more you can leave in, if you don't need it out, if you just want a bit of a regular income to kind of, replace what previously was your salary from your job, it's just about kind of taking it little and often as opposed to all in one go. Yeah, you're right, completely right, Jenny. And you can phase it as well, where in terms of phase your tax-free cash with income, and if you could do that up to your personal allowance, actually you can take a sizable amount of money out of your pension over a period of time with not hitting the tax threshold. So and
also
planning.
Topping it up with income from your ISA, which is tax-free.
Yeah, I think this. Yeah, no, totally agree. And I think this is something we've obviously talked about pensions a lot here as retirement, but there is other products that people have saved into. And there is benefits of keeping your money in a pension, Neil. I don't know if you want to just talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest one that sticks out is inheritance tax. When it's in a pension wrapper, your funds are in there. It's protected from inheritance tax, so it's not assessed. And that's probably more relevant nowadays because, as you know, houses have never been so expensive. I think they said the average house price in the UK when I read the other day was around £380,000. We could see a drop in that, but they've never been so high. If you look in an estate agent's window or online, it's always sold subject to contract or offers over. It's never offers in the region of or a price, so you can tell it's, and pretty much if you look on everyone, it's always sold. So there's a lot of houses being sold at the moment. What does that mean? That means if you own one of those houses, or if you've received money for them, your estate's going to go up. When your money is inside of a pension, it's not assessed for inheritance tax. So if you can keep a lot of your estate within that pension, which is not subject to inheritance tax, then you're doing well to keep it out of your estate.
I must admit, I'm looking for a new house at this minute in time. I'm looking. I'm keeping an eye on. I think you and I have talked about this, and it's god awful. It's you find somewhere and it's within 5 minutes. it's gone. Someone's bought it, and this offer's over. It just drives me crazy. Just tell us how much you want for it.
Yeah.
You know, seems to be the way.
I think the frustrating thing with offers over is you don't know how much the house actually went for until a couple of months later. Once you find out on some register. But I mean, I've heard some horror stories of £180,000 two bed flats going for 240,000, so 60,000 over the asking price. It's just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's a funny market.
It's demand. When me and Greg bought our new house, I think last April, and it was one of these. It wasn't kind of offers over. There was a lot of interest. So what they said was, put in your final bid. We're only going to accept one bid from everyone.
Yeah.
And kind of that's it. And it's then working out, right, okay, well, it's on the market for this. How much do you want that house? How much more can you afford to pay for that
One of my
house?
friends actually.
How much is it worth?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one of my friends actually did that, and his response back from the estate agent was when he did bump up his offer, and the response back from the estate agent was nowhere near. So they're going substantially.
Yeah, because they can't tell you. They won't tell you either.
Well, that's also they're working for they're typically on a percentage rate, so they're working for the person, the seller, as they say. But it's quite an interesting one, because actually, if you're thinking about retirement, and you're still paying for a mortgage, and I think a lot of people have kind of thought, well, actually, do I use my tax-free cash, my pension to cover my mortgage and retire? And what's how's that as an option?
Well, I mean, if you're running up to retirement and your pension is going to be paid off at retirement, and you're very comfortable making those payments, but then you have a lump sum, maybe from your tax-free cash from your pension, or a lump sum of money that you saved up in the bank, why pay it off? In a lot of circumstances, if it's affordable, so say if my mortgage payment's £300, I'm going to retire in 4 years. That's going to be when I'm going to be paying it off, and I'm quite happy to do so. And I'm going to continue working. Why not just leave that lump sum till you retire and invest that, and then just continue with your monthly payments? So a lot of people do get that very old-fashioned historical way of, I've got some money, I'm going to pay off my mortgage, and it might save you, £200, £300, £400 a month, whatever it is. But there's a lot of benefits of maybe keeping that lump sum to one side and then continuing with your monthly payments.
I sometimes think that's a bit, you're looking at it in a way of, oh great, I get this extra £300 to £400 a month, but actually you're taking a lot out of, because you're not going to invest that £300 or £400 a month. You're just going to increase your expenditure, or do something nice, go out on nice days. Whereas if you leave that money invested, it's going to be subject to the market, and hopefully
it's always the dream, isn't it? It's always the dream that people want it. That's you start paying your mortgage off to say, well, how good is it when I sit in a house where I own it outright and there's no mortgage attached to it?
Yeah.
But at current interest rates, even now with interest rates being very low, there's still a low, not an all-time low now, but there's still a low. It's actually a great time to have a mortgage.
I mean, we're not going back to the interest rates we saw even 20 years ago, let alone the interest rates in the early 90s or the 80s, because the economy doesn't have that underlying growth rate. And also, it might seem a bit of a contradiction, but the fact that there are so many mortgage holders now actually compresses the level at which interest rates can rise.
Yeah.
So, and also the mortgage market is very quick at adjusting where it expects official interest rates to get to, say, in the next 6 to 12 months. So I wouldn't expect to see mortgage rates rise materially from here, given how much is expected in the markets for the Bank of England to raise interest rates over the next 6 to 12 months. So they are still historically very, very cheap. Yeah. And the UK has an incredibly competitive mortgage market.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really aggressive.
Yeah.
I think if you look at that, I looked at a figure, and I was just telling Neil and Kevin before I came in, that if you invested in the True Potential Balanced portfolio back when it launched, kind of October 2015, as of end of June, you would have seen a 38% return. So if you can imagine, yes, obviously markets have been different and difficult over the last kind of two and a bit years, but that still included that kind of that fluctuation. So if you can leave that mortgage, or and continue to pay it off, think about the potential return that you could get if you left that bit invested in your pension. For kind of the 5 years.
Totally agree. It's a balanced. It is a nice feeling to pay off your mortgage. I think this is what people say. Haven't quite done it yet.
No.
But I'm sure it is a nice feeling. It's probably what I should have said.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, I think. Okay, so if we're coming across this question, what people feel, how do you feel about this fact of? We'll kind of go back to the topic of should you delay your retirement. We'll start with you, Kevin. Should you delay your retirement?
I think it's the lifestyle choice you want. I think the what's interesting to me is the choices you have. Assuming, True Potential's aspiration is to give customers the power to retire. They have that, they have the financial wherewithal to retire. So having the choice is about, well, how do you want to compose your time once you have that choice? Healthcare, for instance, gives people far more choices. My mum's 72. She still works full time as a cook in a care home, and one of the reasons she can do that is the NHS help her with a knee issue. So she's on her feet every day. But perhaps 30 years ago, she would have been forced to retire because she wouldn't have been able to stand on her feet for as long. So there are choices which exist now which didn't exist for the previous generation with regards to quality of life, not just the financial pot they have behind them. So it's just, I think, whether you want to be on the golf course or with the grandkids, or you still want to be or even also still interacting with your colleagues in the office, maybe on reduced hours or on a different type of role, consulting, bricklaying. It just depends. It strings to your bow, isn't it? So I think it's the great thing is that as economies mature and go on, we're giving people more choice with how they wish to compose their time.
Yeah, I think that I totally agree. It is a better place than it was 20, 30 years ago. There's no doubt about we're living in a better healthcare, better country, more opportunity, in my opinion. I think there's two key areas, given my sort of opinion on it. If you're sort of younger and saving, you should look at that as an opportunity to say, how do I dictate when I want to retire? And I might not want to retire at 65, I might want to retire at 55, I might never want to retire, but make sure that you set your savings goals up so you have that option and you're not forced into saying, I don't want to work, but I have to because I can't afford it. And I think that is a difficult thing, by the way. But I think if you start from an early saver point of view, if you start saving early, that's a really sort of good point to start. From people that are retiring, that are looking at retiring now, just have a chat with your advisor. It could be that you actually could afford it. I speak to a lot of clients where they actually can afford it and they didn't realise because they just see a pot and it's quite difficult.
They have no idea how much money they're going to get from that pot. Yes,
exactly. Yeah. And there's other sources in there, so just really speak to us. I
think it's a good assumption that when people have a pension pot, they have enough to retire. But like you said before, people just might not have enough in the pension pot. Yeah. So do they need to put some more money in? And talk about the tax benefits. It's always great to put money in because you're getting a tax uplift from the government as well.
Are you going to take up golf when you retire, Neil?
I hate golf. I absolutely hate golf.
I've always thought, what would I do? Let's go a while away, but I also hate golf.
Irritate people, Jamie.
Probably, just you specifically, Neil.
Yeah.
I don't know, I might take up five-a-side football again.
Yeah.
It's a good sport that you
can
join us.
Running's good.
No, I'm not good at that, Neil. we try to. Great. I think that's a good way to end it, folks. I think the sort of key messages are there is really just communicate with us if you do want to look at retiring or have a chat with your advisor and just really just understand what your options are.
I think there's a lot of content on the app as well, so if you have a look at the app, there's a lot of videos that we do on there about retirement, about the different saving options, so it's always good to look on your client site on the app to get that information. Yeah,
there's some good blogs on there actually. I was reading a couple recently, but if you click on your feed, you can see there's every so often we'll push a blog or some commentary from our investment team. If you click on that, there's various blogs that can sort of help people understand a little bit more. Great. I think we'll do the standard. What are you doing at the weekend to finish off? I don't know if I want to ask Neil. Kevin, what are you doing at this weekend?
I think I'm doing some gardening.
Oh, some gardening. That's something you do in retirement.
Yeah. The garden's looking like it's been put through a toaster, so I need to, resuscitate part of the garden.
I 2 years ago made the best decision to get rid of every form of gardening known, and I put artificial grass down, and so because I'm not a gardener, there's no doubt about that.
Still nice and green.
My next door neighbour used to cut me grass because they would get frustrated with my grass being longer.
So now he just has to paint it.
Yes, basically. Jenny, you got any plans for the weekend?
No, not really. Nothing as of yet. I went to Costco last weekend.
What an experience that is. I went there the first time 6 months ago. I couldn't believe it.
I know, but I'm really sad now that I didn't fill up my car at Costco.
Oh, it's about 10 pence cheaper on the pump, isn't it? It's worth.
It was a massive queue, and it was weighing up whether I really cared enough.
I'm astounded by that place. You go in for you're going to buy like, I don't know, just one thing, and you end up spending
Come out with a
200-300
trolley full.
of things that don't really matter.
Yeah.
You'll get, you go, oh, they're great, I'll get myself some, I don't know, some blueberries in a box this big that it's not possible for two people to
To
eat.
eat them, no.
So yeah, it's a bit of an astounding place. And Neil, are you?
Well, as you know, we are in training for the Great North Run,
Yes.
so I don't have anything planned, but me and Jamie did the Durham 10K last Friday.
Should we discuss times,
And,
Neil?
I don't want to discuss times.
No.
But just let's say there's a few years between me and Jamie.
Yeah.
So we did all right, we did well. It was pretty hilly, wasn't it?
It was
in
hilly and
parts,
hot.
and it was very warm. It was about 18, 19 degrees at 7:30 at night going on. So we did all right, but yeah, when I finished that one, I thought, now I've got to train for something which is double the pace. So I'll be all right. I'll be all right if I can keep up with Jamie.
It was funny because I rang Neil on the Wednesday night, asked him if he wanted to do it, and he says, oh yeah, sign us up. And then when I finished the course, it was a really tough course, and I thought, all I could think of when I was waiting for him is, he's going to kill us. He's going to kill us, getting him to sign up for
Yeah,
this.
I think it was a mix of me having a heart attack on the last leg and your legs going.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, it was good.
It was worth it though.
Yeah, it was real good fun. It was just a little bit too hot. And I think that's what I might just cool down this weekend after this week.
Yeah.
It's been horrible.
Yeah.
It
Get some
has.
sleep.
I was laughing because it is. We always complain when it's like raining and everything, but as soon as we get a ridiculously hot day, it's even worse. The world nearly stopped, actually, didn't it?
Typically British.
It was interesting, but great. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Hopefully, our viewers got a bit of information on whether they can delay their retirement or not today. And thank you very much. Please like and subscribe, as usual. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend, everyone.
If you're interested in taking your investing to the next level, or would like to know more about the options available to you when you retire, then download our free guides to ISAs and pensions. These are available in the video description below.